Welcome to today's live stream. I'm your trusty host, Kurt, and I'll be here with you for the next hour or two. We're going to talk about not spiritualism today. Seemingly, right? Seemingly. Are we talking about spiritualism today? Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. Is ego spiritual? Well, obviously not. We're going to discuss, well then, why is there an ego? Is there a purpose? Is it all just useless? The ego, is it meaningless? And I have to tell you, the core essence of what is truly spiritual, the very, very core. Some people get really offended when I bring this up, and then when I go, well, Buddha said this, they go, oh, I know. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, like things that the ego does that are maybe things that don't serve you, like gaslighting, which is what that is, right? But the true core essence, the very core of spiritualism is that there really is no purpose to life or spiritualism at all. Purpose is a mental construct, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, but life just is. Now, ego, perhaps you could say, does give you a purpose. And when you remember who you are as the consciousness, the ego begins to serve a purpose, or at least it can. That's what should happen. And what I'd like to do today is help those of you that are on this spiritual awakening journey to avoid the traps, the cycles that people get stuck into. And I just want to say right at the very front end that there is a big difference between what I'm talking about when I talk about ego in this sense and what most people mean when they say the word ego. So there's kind of two definitions of the word ego, and it depends on the context of the conversation. So usually what people are talking about when they say the word ego is like arrogant, like, oh, well, you're in your ego, right? And maybe they're right. Maybe they're talking about somebody who is being very arrogant, right? But what I'm talking about generally in today's live stream is not that context, but rather the more objective, empirical use of the word ego, definition of the word ego, which is to say the identity, the separate self, the little me, right? The personality, the ego, the id, right? So a very stripped down, empirical, objective use of the word ego. Yeah, what is this thing for? Like, why do we have it? Is it good for anything? That's what we're talking about today. A couple of housekeeping things. First, I just want to acknowledge my moderators, One Soul and Annie. Hello, guys, and everybody. Please give them some love. Give them a little love today, guys. They're here on a volunteer basis. They're doing this for absolutely free because they love doing this. They love helping you guys. They're doing whatever they can do to try to help out. So, tell them thanks, give them some love, hit the like button for my moderators. Some good people, and we thank them very, very much. Also, if you didn't know, you can find me over here. If you're not looking at your screen, look at your screen. So this is a different platform, just like this one, YouTube, right? This here, where you can go watch videos, right? And it's a lot easier for you to say things that you want to say, right? And same name, New World All-Star. All-Star is one word, A-L-L-S-T-A-R, New World All-Star. We're going to be talking about how to make the world a better place. Right here, and how you can make your world a better place, and how we can create communities and live forever together in peace and prosperity. Amen. Gotta love that. Also, an announcement about these live chats. I'm going to switch to doing these basically like once a month kind of thing. I want to spend more time like focused on creating law of attraction content. So what I'm going to do starting next Wednesday is on Wednesday, I'll be doing a law of attraction video. And then on Thursdays, I'll be doing another law of attraction video. So you're going to get a double dose of law of attraction Wednesdays and Thursdays. And, I'll be talking about like general spiritual subjects from time to time as well, which is kind of what today's video is. And again, is it spiritual, right? Is today's video about spiritualism? And we'll talk about what I mean by that. So that's the format. So for Wednesdays, it's going to be 3 Wednesdays where we're going to do a regular YouTube video about the law of attraction, and occasionally, again, perhaps a general spiritualism topic. But usually law of attraction, Wednesdays, 3 weeks in a row on the Wednesday. And then on the 4th Wednesday, every 4th Wednesday, we're going to do a live. And I even, when I thought about doing this, I said, yeah, I should be doing more law of attraction videos, and I've got all of my other slots kind of filled already on my YouTube channel. I'm already doing something every day, except Tuesdays. I leave Tuesdays alone on purpose. I'm not going to get into that, but it has to do with like getting traffic to the channel. There's a reason I do that. There's something, there's like a YouTube technique, that you do where you can, not post content for a day, and it ends up causing a little bit more traffic to come to your channel in some circumstances. But every other day of the week, I've got something going on. And so I'm like, well, the only other slot that I really have where I could do another law of attraction video, so that way I can do 2 every week, would be Wednesday. But I don't want to get rid of the lives either. I like doing the lives. So that's kind of the compromise that I came up with. I said, all right, I'll do 3 weeks in a row, law of attraction videos, and then every 4th week we'll do a live stream, because I kind of like doing these. And so One Soul and Annie, I was going to email you this information just in case you weren't available on today's live, but you're both here, so there you go. Now you know what's going on. So, the next live stream is going to be June 21st. And then there's going to be a 3-week gap, and then we're going to do another live. And if you forget, then just shoot me an email. Also, guys, one more thing, and then we'll get to today's topic. There's 1 week left of my spring spectacular. 1 week, guys. Both of my video programs, 25% off. All you got to do is pay in full and use this coupon code, and you get 25% off just like that on either of my world-class coaching programs. Again, the coupon code is SPRING. And that ends in a week. You got 1 week left, guys. So you better make haste and take advantage of that. I do have payment plans. So if you cannot afford, to pay in full, even with the coupon code, you can start for, it's like $70 or something for the silver package. But get the gold package. Trust me, you won't be sorry. You will love the secret Facebook community and the group coaching calls. And you get 2 months with the gold package. Either way you go, the introduction to the journey for twin flames or the manifesting law of attraction video course. And guys, it's world-class coaching. I leave no stone unturned, right? The manifesting video course is 26 hours, I think. It's like 22 or 26. And the twin flame coaching program, the introduction to the journey, it's 8.5 hours. And there's a bunch of free content. There's exclusive content always going in my Facebook group. It's very, very thorough. You're going to get what you pay for, right? You give me some money, I give you service. My coaches, there's myself and there's 2 other coaches assisting me. And we make sure everybody's question gets answered. If you post a question in the Facebook group, it gets answered. We're on it. And even better than that, even if I get busy, like I've been busy for the last few days, I haven't had time to get in there. No problem. I've got my assistant coach, Brittany, and she's basically a little carbon copy of me, right? Which is to say, she's her own person, but she's going to give you the correct teachings, right? You're going to get the right answer. And also from the community, other students in the communities, they're going to chime in, and you're going to get your questions answered. You're going to get some service, right? And we want this to work for you. And all of my students, they tell me there's nothing else like this out there. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I do strive for excellence. I want to make sure this works. And that's just kind of my philosophy. I make sure this works. And, we have a full-time customer service department. All of my coaches who are assisting me are employees, and they get vacation and personal days and sick time and everything, right? So that's the kind of organization that you're dealing with right now. Now, and one soul, I just want to say, congratulations. Yes, build your YouTube channel. Cheers to that. Cheers to that. Now, let's get to the matter at hand. What is the purpose of ego? And again, just in case you just joined, when I'm talking about ego, I'm talking about the objective sense of the word, where it's the personality, the separate self, the little me, the id, the ego, right? The identity, not the consciousness. The soul is consciousness. The mind is thought. And when we use the word ego in this objective sense, there's even an interesting way to describe it, where you might have to be clear about which word to use. Here's what I mean. So often what we do is to talk about the mind or the ego or the personality. And so we're using, in that sense, those words interchangeably: the mind, ego, personality, the identity, entity, the separate self. We're kind of using those words interchangeably, and that's fine. And that's usually what is going on when we talk about this stuff. But I want you to be aware of the fact that technically you could actually have a separate definition for each of those words, right? So now it becomes where the ego or personality is one component of the mind. So now those are different things. And very quickly, JM, thank you for your super chat. Would listening to music or videos be considered mind-ego stuff? Yeah. But remember, what I'm going to teach you in this video is that doesn't mean that it's bad. Because again, most of the time, when you hear the word ego being used by people, when people are using that word, what they're talking about is, oh, well, that's just ego. Right, you're given this impression that ego is always bad and it's always useless. And by the way, you know who else has talked about this topic? And there's quite a few of them who have talked about this topic and have pointed out the things that I'm going to point out in this video, which is to say, no, the ego is not bad. The ego is just, you know, it's a component of the mind. There's a purpose to it. Can you guess who else has talked about this? And the reason I'm asking you that is because I want to be clear that this isn't just some shit that I'm making up. Okay? Right, Eckhart Tolle, that's right. And even Anna Brown, she's perfectly clear about that, and you can tell she gets this. Buddha, Alan Watts, right? All of them, all of the great spiritual teachers, yeah, they're going to have this conversation with you. And it's important for me to break this talking point out, put it on the table, and carefully look at it right now. Because what you're going to see on the internet, or when you join spiritual communities, and it could even be in-person spiritual communities. I've heard all kinds of stories from some of my students who have visited, you know, like Sedona, which is a very nice place. I've been there and I enjoyed it. But, you know, you're going to kind of get that from people. This belief that ego is always bad and just always something to be avoided. And anytime we talk about the ego, it's understood from the get-go that that's bad and we need to avoid that, right? And interesting, that's actually the ego. That's actually the ego right there. The ego creates suffering, and then it comes up with all kinds of contrivances to avoid suffering. And avoidance of pain, that's a big, big, big problem. And you can see that embedded in the spiritual, in quotation marks, spiritual message, the pop culture spiritual message on the internet. And it's just a misconception. But unfortunately, what seems to happen is that misconception, that seed of misconception turns into a nasty, you know, Venus flytrap, a nasty monster, giant, nasty monster where you have people who are probably narcissistic attacking others, or the good people who get sucked into that. And then they become part of the problem too. And I'm even going to give you an example of that just occurred a couple of days ago when I was talking about some things. And oh my God, the spiritual New Age cult belief system was like in full fucking motherfucking force when I said some things about this particular topic a few days ago, a different topic, but it was like you could just see it. And these people were very robotic and toxic too, and like just persistent, like they would never give up. And then if you chose to engage them, then they would tell you that you're bad for engaging them while engaging you, which is gaslighting. And then they also use other tactics like triangulation to tell you, well, you don't act like so-and-so, so you're bad, right? So we're going to talk about narcissism in today's video too, which is a term that gets thrown around a lot. And most people don't even really know what that is or how to describe it. They just think somebody who they don't like is a narcissist, and that's just it. Or if they say something they don't like, if somebody says something that you think you don't like, I know you're a narcissist, right? So people just kind of throw that word around in a very cavalier way. And I don't recommend that. So yeah, astrology, right. Anything that is duality is going to be the mind trying to understand, the ego mind, right? The ego is a component, technically, of the mind. So, yeah, so one soul, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know what's interesting? Every single one of those people, they deleted their comments and they left. And they blocked me. Interesting. Because the other day when that was going down on my Facebook post, I kind of was like, I'm going to be a honey badger today. I usually don't do that. 999 times out of 1,000, I just delete them or block them, or I'm just like, you know what? Get out of here, weirdo. Because they're toxic. They're just internet trolls. Just a bunch of internet trolls. But a couple days ago, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this out. I'm going to be the fucking honey badger today. We're going to go toe to toe, right? Let's do this. You want some of this? It's on. Let's go, right? And I got in there and I started engaging these people. And it was like the more that you engaged them, the more that it was easy to see. It was easy to see what these people were really all about. And they were just insufferable. And then when they figured out, wait, this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy can see right through me. What happens to narcissists is they feel naked in front of you. They know that they've been exposed. They know that you can see exactly what they're doing. And then they do something called a narcissistic discard. So every single one of these people deleted their comments and they left, and then they blocked me. Very interesting. Okay, so before I get to this, I got another super chat from Aaliyah. She says, I feel narcissism equals some ego construct, family lines are hijacked by another entity that attempts to defy universal order, just like thoughts. Much appreciation. Aaliyah, you freaking nailed it. And it's called the demiurge. And I've made videos about this. I believe in my live stream about New Age spiritualism, yes, I even defined exactly what that is, the demiurge. And essentially, it's been called the devil or Satan, which is not a conscious being. It's an entity. And it's just like this. It's this energy body. It's this energy body. And yeah, one soul, you're right. My public Facebook group, New World All-Star, they're in there. And I'm actually kind of thankful for when these things take place, when these things happen. Like every time I say something that triggers the Trigglypuffs, the little Trigglypuff snowflakes, who, again, they gaslight you. They turn around and they go, you're triggered, you're bad, and you need healing. Right, why did you delete all your shit and leave? Because you felt naked in front of me. You know that I can see you for what you really are. But anyway, every time I post something like this that challenges their belief system, their religion, and they're all trying to peer pressure you into doing it. They're all trying to peer pressure you into doing it, right? It's a cult. It's a cult. They're going to peer pressure you into doing certain things to look a certain way. I am spiritual, right? Look at me, everybody. Anyway, every time I make one of these types of posts, the Trigglypuffs, it's like they come out of the woodworks, which is a good thing. I think of it like you've got a nice clean house, but there's that one shelf, and underneath it, you haven't dusted under there for a while. And so you get like one of those air sprayers. You know what I mean? Like the can of air. And you get under there and you start spraying it out, and all this junk comes out. And then you can clean it all out and make it nice and clean down there. And you clean up all the stuff and you get rid of it, right? Yeah. So whenever I make one of these types of posts that challenges their religious beliefs, and again, these people call themselves spiritual. Oh man, it's like screaming bloody murder. It's like they can just smell blood in the water, and they just like a mob, they just attack. And they're attacking me, they're attacking other people in the comments section, just on and on and on. Now, I'm already talking about this. I was going to wait to talk about this until later, but I guess I'm already talking about it. And this was the other day when I posted on my Facebook and on YouTube. I said, ayahuasca is not spiritual. And if you want to do ayahuasca, I don't fucking care, guys. Yeah, they're on Gaia, they're on YouTube, they're at the Crystal Shop, they're all over Sedona. Boulder, Colorado, that's like a mini Sedona, right? And again, some of them are good people. They've just fallen for the trick. Well, anyway, I said ayahuasca is not spiritual. It is nothing more than the ego's feeble attempt to acquire spiritual. And again, 99.999% of the time, when the knowledgeable, experienced, authentic spiritual teacher is using the word ego, what they are talking about is this energy body. It is a energy clump, an energy cloud. It's a collection of retained thought and emotional patterns that constitutes this sense of self. It's a mental sense of self. This is an objective, scientific, mechanical explanation of the word ego right now. Any use of the word ego where it's like, yeah, you're in your ego, you're stuck up, that's just an ego. That is not what I'm talking about. And that's usually what people mean on the internet and everywhere else when they're using the word ego. But that's not what Eckhart Tolle is talking about when he's talking about it. That's not what Anna Brown is talking about when she's talking about it. And that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it. That's not what Rupert Spira is talking about when he's talking about it. Now, why is that? I don't know, because we know what we're talking about. And right off the bat, these gaslighters, you know what they're going to say? They're going to go, oh, see, Kurt, he's arrogant. He's He's declaring that he knows what he's talking about, so that's ego, and he thinks he's right all the time, and he's a narcissist. Yeah, right. And what's really going on is I am telling the truth. I am explaining things correctly. There is a truth. The sun rises in the east. And if you think that which direction the sun comes up is subjective, then I can't help you. There is a truth. There is a correct way to explain things. Some things in life are objective. Some things in life are subjective. And you see these Trigglypuffs and the New Age cult people who, from my experience, many of them tend to be very narcissistic. They're going to start bending the meaning of words around to kind of get their way. I'm just going to say this at the front. The whole entire purpose of narcissism, what motivates the narcissism, it's shame. They want to overcome their shame. And that's the conventional scientific psychology behind narcissism. I'm not a psychologist, but you ask any psychologist, they're going to go, yeah, it's shame. So to deal with their shame, they gaslight you, they triangulate, they lie, they bend the meaning of words around to suit their egoic needs. And this is the toxic way to use the ego, right? Because what they're trying to do is make themselves to be better than you. Because if they can place themselves above you and put you in a position of need where you think you need them, and oh boy, they sure told you, they sure taught you a lesson, right? The reason they're doing that is so that they can feel better about themselves. Because they're motivated by shame. They cannot emotionally regulate themselves. They need you to do it for them. And again, this is not my opinion. This is not my truth. This is the truth. And you can ask any psychologist. There's even a manual, a psychology manual. It's called the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. When you are diagnosed with full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, or when somebody, I should say, is diagnosed with full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, this diagnosis is made by, first of all, a doctor. And this doctor is called a psychologist. Okay? And a psychologist has a PhD, and they've been trained a lot, and they know what they're talking about, and they even have an official manual. Here's the criteria, and there's 9 criteria, and you have to meet 5 of them. And if you do for sure meet 5 of those criteria, the doctor, the psychologist, is going to diagnose you with narcissistic personality disorder. And the science behind this is so consistent that this kind of diagnosis is admissible in a court of law. Psychology is the science-based study of like personality patterns. Okay? And this kind of pathology, like narcissism, when it gets bad enough, it's a full-blown disorder. This is why you can have like serial killers in court. A psychologist studies them for a year, talks to them, and after a year, a pattern of behavior becomes evident to the psychologist, and they go, well, Your Honor, they're mentally insane. They're unfit to stand trial. They really didn't know what they were doing. And that doesn't make sense to the rest of us, because we're not insane, right? We wouldn't be a serial killer. But that's the thing about a serial killer is their mind is so messed up that it's like they don't know what they're doing or something. And so the psychologist goes to the judge and goes, "Here you go. Here's my report." And the judge says, "Okay, well, this person cannot stand trial. So what we're going to have to do is put them in an institution. We're going to have to lock them up." Now, at that point, that's when I don't think the system handles things very well, because they put them in one of these institutions, and the way people are ordinarily treated in these kinds of places is not very good. And I'm not saying that we should give a serial killer a super deluxe treatment, but I don't think the way they're doing it still is really the right way to do it. I'm just going to say that. But the person, in the end, they're still removed from society because they're a threat to society. And again, they can't really stand trial and be handled in the way that people ordinarily do. And yeah, maybe rehabilitation would be a nice thing for them, but that's probably not going to happen. They just need to be removed from society. And you can try to rehabilitate, but I don't think the outcome that we are hoping for with rehabilitation is going to happen. And I'm not even saying to treat them with compassion. I'm not so sure either rehabilitation or compassion are the answer, but just to remove them from society. Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe that prisons are wrong in general. People that murder other people and steal, they're not going to change. They need to be removed from society permanently. But what I will say is, I'm not even sure that prison, like the way we do prison, I'm not sure that works either. So maybe that's, Justin, what you meant by that statement. I don't think we do prisons correctly. Well, anyway, I don't know how we ended up having this conversation. Oh, yes, I do. Psychology. So the psychology of narcissism is a real thing. It's an objective scientific discipline. And one of the first things you have to realize, everybody, is there is such a thing as objective truth. Like, for example, can a person be toxic or not? Yes. And that's an objective truth. It doesn't matter if somebody goes, "Oh, well, I disagree," right? Or here's another thing, like, what is spiritual? You don't get to have an opinion about that. You can do things that, in the ordinary sense of the word spiritual, are, well, spiritual in the ordinary sense, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if we get down to the core of what spiritualism really is, no thing is spiritual. There's no thing that is inherently spiritual. I'm going to print something off here so I can show you something. Here we go. Is that going to be big enough? try that. There we go. Okay. So I found an internet meme. One of my wonderful students posted this internet meme in our private Facebook community, and it was just perfect. And I don't know, man, God, I gotta tell you, this intelligent force that we call God and I, we talk all the time, guys. And here's another example of this. You know, some of the things that I've been doing lately in the work that I've been doing, and I mean working like making videos and, you know, projects that I'm working on. And this thing that took place on my Facebook group the other day, and even on my YouTube channel, I posted it. They're related. And then one of my students posts this, and I'm like, oh my God, that's perfect. And I'm sitting here like, you know, wow, like this came along at just the right time. This came along at just the right time. Isn't that something? This is the very perfect meme ever for what I've been kind of dissecting lately. I've been working on projects about this topic lately. I've been doing that a lot. And also what took place on Monday when I was talking about ayahuasca. And then the very next day, my student posts this, and I'm like, gosh, that's perfect. So, New Age, this New Age religion is a cult religious belief system. They call it New Age spiritualism, but it's not. And again, here's how the whole thing with that post, by the way, arose. Here's what happened. One of my students, they got in the Facebook community, the private Facebook community, and they go, guys, I went to this event and there were all these people there who said that they are spiritual. And they told me I'm not spiritual if I don't do ayahuasca. I don't want to do ayahuasca. And by the way, for the record, everybody, you know, in my 20s, I was smoking weed every day. I took acid twice. I did shrooms, you know. And I didn't do shrooms a bunch, but maybe a dozen times. I don't know. But yeah, I was one of those, like in high school, smoking weed, and going into my 20s, I was like smoking weed every day. And I had some cool experiences with shrooms and acid and stuff like that, right? So I don't care. I don't give a shit. I live in Colorado. Like, you can literally go to the store with cash and buy weed and walk out the door. Well, anyway, these people who said, oh, we are spiritual, they were trying to peer pressure my student into doing ayahuasca. And they literally said, if you don't do ayahuasca, you're not spiritual. You're never going to transcend and reach the higher realms or whatever. If you don't do ayahuasca. And you guys, you watch out for these guys, man. These people, this cult religion, which calls itself spiritual, it's a religion. They're going to throw words at you. They're going to throw things at you that sound spiritual. For example, I've got something that's coming up to be healed. And that's not even how the mind works. I've talked about this lots of times on here. Guys, you don't get to decide how the mind functions. And they're going to start throwing crap at you like, well, that's just your truth. No. Your truth or my truth is subjective. It's like, my favorite color is blue, and that's the best color. Well, that's my opinion. That's subjective. Guys, there are things, lots of things, in our world where there is the truth, and it works one way every time. For example, how does the mind function? How does the mind work? Oh, okay, so let me get this straight. My truth is that I need to do all this healing. And then when you hear like what they are calling healing, that's not how the mind works. And you're never gonna be healed if you approach it that way. It's toxic. You just keep going through the same cycles. And if you point that out to one of these people, they're going to go, well, that's not my truth. Right. So they're always using this kind of sneaky lingo to like wiggle their way out of getting out of toxic cycles. So, my truth. Yeah, watch out for that. Again, is there such a thing? Yes. What is it? A subjective opinion. Like, tacos are bad. I don't like tacos. Oh, yeah? Well, I love tacos. Okay, so that's my truth. Now, there's another thing called the truth, which is objective. For example, the mind works a particular way, and it works the same for everybody, even if they don't believe that. And that's the thing about science is you don't get to believe, and you don't need to. Like I saw somebody on the internet, or no, one of my YouTube videos, and they go, yeah, Einstein didn't believe in quantum physics. Okay, first of all, it is impossible to believe in science. Second of all, Einstein did recognize that quantum physics was legitimate. That's a myth. Einstein didn't believe in quantum physics. No. He saw what was going on. Yeah, that's a real thing. His problem with it was that quantum physicists like Niels Bohr, who basically invented quantum physics, and Einstein and Niels Bohr, they hung out all the time, guys. Niels Bohr and all the other quantum physicists, basically what they're saying was, this appears to be motivated by random chance, quantum physics. And Einstein said, no way. I see what you're doing. I see what's going on. And yeah, I recognize that these events are really taking place. But there's got to be a mechanism. God doesn't play dice. That's what Einstein said. And you know what? It turns out Einstein was incorrect about that. The deeper that science digs into quantum physics, the more that they're finding out, yeah, there is random chance. Now, if you ask me, what's really going on is there's an intelligence which is choosing what to do. It's not exactly random any more than when you decide, I'm going to go out for Chinese tonight instead of hamburgers. Right. And materialists, scientists, they don't like that, but science is 100% hard going in that direction where it's like, no, there's a randomness. There's a consciousness. Lothar Schaefer, physicist Lothar Schaefer, he said, consciousness is an unexplainable cosmic force. Touché. So science, you don't believe science, and you don't need to. The way science works is you question the shit out of something. And if every time you test it out, it never falls, then you've got something there. You've got something that you can prove. You can upgrade it from hypothesis to theory. And technically, the way the scientific method works is nothing is ever truly proven, in quotation marks, even though that's kind of double talk in a sense, because you can prove things, right? You can prove things. But the scientific method is saying in order for us to be unbiased, let's make a rule where you can always question things. And if it turns out you disprove something, even one time, then you need to update your theory. But when you have something like, for example, how does the mind work? And psychologists have been looking at it for 150 years, and what they're finding out is the basic functions of the mind. It's not debated, and it's never going to change. Guys, this is the way the mind works, and we've proven it. Could it change? No. But we say that it could change in order to practice good science. We allow ourselves to always listen to skeptics, even though on certain topics they never come up with anything, right? So when it comes to things like this, there's no my truth, guys. Or when it comes to things like, how does the mind work? How does the mind function? How is it constructed? Yeah, you don't get to decide. And you don't need to. And guys, this is good news. This is good. How are we ever going to get anything done if we're always sitting around until the day we die arguing about what the definition of is? Or how the ego functions and what maybe it could possibly be for. What is the purpose of it? How are we ever going to get anywhere with life if we don't settle some of this stuff? Yeah, guys, there is such a thing as the truth. And when you fully internalize this knowledge that I'm giving you today, that's when you'll never fall for the tricks of these new age cult people. It's a cult. And I'm gonna tell you exactly why it's a cult. I'm gonna show you examples. I've kind of already gotten into it. So some of the lingo they're gonna throw at you, you're gonna see things like, I've got something that's coming up to be healed. Yeah, that's not how the mind works, guys. The mind is not a container, and we just need to purge out all the bad feelings so that there's only good feelings ever. Challenges will arise forever and ever. Celestine, hello. Shannon, one soul. If they use the word purpose, I guess I don't understand what you're asking. I guess what I was saying was, yeah, there is a purpose to the ego, but how much spiritually sounding lingo can we think of right now? Like healing, which is a thing, but then when you listen to what they tell you you must do for healing, it's toxic and it backfires. It makes things worse. The mind can produce emotions infinitely, new ones, and it always will until you die. That's why actual spiritualism, which is consciousness, is so critical, because then you can live in harmony with the ego personality. And you figure out that the ego mind serves a purpose. They call that holistic living when you do that. What are some other lingo that they're always using? Ancient spiritual traditions, which is a thing, or but the way they're using it is to manipulate you and to gaslight you, to trick you, so that they can make you seem smaller, make you seem like you're not knowledgeable, make you seem like you're bad, so that they can feel good, because narcissists operate from shame. And guys, Monday, when I got into it with these people, one person even accused me of being a racist. Serious, they played the race card. And then I pointed out that they were doing that. And without addressing the obvious gaslighting that they were doing, they just kind of moved on to the next method, the next attack method. And I was like, wait a minute, don't you think you should address how you were just gaslighting me and trying to trick me? Don't you think you should acknowledge what you just did? Nope. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that, guys. And this is destructive ego. Like, what the fuck does race have to do with ayahuasca? Well, you know, you're being insensitive towards these ancient cultures. No, I'm not. It has got nothing to do with that. Every spiritual master all throughout history has pointed out that spiritual is non-duality. And yes, Mandy, I think you're right, but perhaps stated more precisely would be to say the My Truth movement is so toxic, right? Ayahuasca is just a plant. There is, and I don't care if you use ayahuasca. I used to do acid and shrooms and stuff. And yeah, I had some really cool experiences, but guys, you can't acquire spiritual. What are some other lingos that they're going to use? They're going to say words like shaman. They're going to say words like healing. They're going to say words like ego, right? They're going to say words like energy. And again, all of these words, these are all real things, but they're misusing it so that they can control you. And again, what spurned this whole thing was my student being mobbed by a bunch of New Agers that are all trying to peer pressure them into doing ayahuasca. Really, so if I don't drink a plant that makes me throw up and gets me high and trip out and have this experience, you know, maybe this person is like a housewife or something, or a construction worker or a farmer, or just, I don't know, pick your stereotype, whatever kind of person, just an average everyday person that's just not comfortable doing stuff like that, guys. You don't fucking have to do ayahuasca and get high and take shrooms and do all this stuff. You don't have to do that. And these people are sitting there going, yes, you do. And they were peer pressuring this person, telling them, if you don't do ayahuasca, you're not spiritual. And by the way, I bet you $1 million if I showed up on the scene and said exactly that to these people, they'd go, oh, no, we're not. Right. Gaslighting. And then later, when it's convenient for them at a different point in the conversation to look at you and say, oh, well, you're in your ego. Eckhart Tolle wouldn't do that. Which, number one, probably isn't true. Number two, that's called triangulation. Oh, so-and-so doesn't do that. Gaslighting you, triangulation. And again, this conversation that I'm having with you guys, Eckhart Tolle has warned people about this lots of times. They're just going to cherry pick his teachings when it's convenient for them. That's another thing that narcissists do. And guys, I got to tell you, narcissistic personality disorder, like full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, that's pretty bad. But at the same time, there's more of a like low level, if you want to call it that, not as like full-blown, maybe is the word, not as full-blown, like everyday kind of narcissism that I guess you would call a pathology. Again, I'm not a psychologist, but guys, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff and learning about this stuff. And that's what this video is all about. Thinking is not bad. Thinking is wonderful. And I highly recommend it. But thinking isn't going to work for you if you don't get this stuff straight. Like, how does the mind work? There is a way. There is the truth. And it's not subjective. You don't get to decide how the mind works. And again, for those of you that are just joining us, I addressed that talking point earlier already, right? The legitimacy of what I'm talking about. So if you disagree with me, just go back and rewatch my video, and you're going to go, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. And this isn't about me being right. There is such a thing as correct. And this is another gaslighting technique that the New Age cultists are going to tell you. You just want to be right. You're just in your ego, which interestingly, they're doing exactly what they're accusing you of. Also, guys, there is a legitimate and big difference between being right and being correct, or being wrong and being incorrect. So being right and wrong is like in the ordinary sense. Actually, I don't even think it's the ordinary sense. It's the incorrect use of the word ego. But again, context of the word ego in that sense is somebody that's really arrogant. I'm right, right? That's not what we're talking about. There is such a thing as correct or incorrect. There is such a thing as the truth. And these people, it's all about the word salad. It's all about the manipulation tactics. And then they're just going to peer pressure you. Again, this is something that happens to my students all the time. I see this all the time. There's a bunch of people like peer pressuring them to do ayahuasca. And if you don't, you're not spiritual. That's fucked up, man. Wow. That's fucked up. And again, one more time. If I was there on the scene and I pointed that out to these people, they would go, oh, we're not doing that. They would just deny it. And it's like, wait a minute. That's what you were just doing. No, it's not. See, you're a narcissist, Kurt. Right. Which is one of the very favorite techniques of the narcissist, is to call you a narcissist. Funny how that works. And where I was going to go with this a minute ago was the average, everyday, pathological kind of narcissism, not full-blown NPD, but these types of people, it's growing, guys, in our world today. It seems like it's becoming a bigger and bigger problem. And yeah, you're right. That's, guys, I get up here all the time and I keep telling you, this is a cult belief system. And some people might think I'm just putting them down. No. These people are like fucking zombies. Like, if you don't do ayahuasca, you're a failure. What? And then they're even going to gaslight you and tell you that you're a racist because you're not being sensitive to these ancient cultural traditions that have done ayahuasca. I don't care if somebody does ayahuasca, but I don't want to do it. And most people don't. And again, any legitimate spiritual teacher, all of the great spiritual teachers, they're going to tell you, you don't need that. And that's not even spiritual, including Ram Dass. I even had the same person who threw the race card at me. They threw Ram Dass at me. And then I was like, okay, dude. When Ram Dass went to India, he had a big epiphany and he was like, wait, I was wrong. Now, after India, he still did use substances, but first of all, not nearly as much. Second of all, he stopped with this narrative about, oh yeah, it'll make you spiritual. He realized, wait, no, it won't. It won't make you spiritual. And when I pointed that out to this person, they go, yeah, I know. Well, then why in the fuck did you throw Ram Dass in my face now? And then, again, 999 out of 1,000 times when I see stuff like this, you guys, I just ignore it. I don't care. But like I said a couple of days ago, I was like, I'm going to be a honey badger today. Let's try this out. Let's see what happens, right? And I was like, nope, I'm going to not let them have the last word, right? And it was like the outcome was exactly what I knew it was going to be with every single one of these people. And again, they all deleted their comments and left and blocked me. Why? Because they felt naked in front of me. I was able to see through them. They don't like it. And by the way, every time they make their exit, they always say shit like namaste after they just got done lying, gaslighting, triangulating, calling you names, being about as toxic as possible. And then right before they make their exit, they go namaste and they leave a couple of hearts. Mary Poppins, thank you. What is my opinion on the Myers-Briggs personality test? I've taken it. I don't know. Everybody thinks that they are INFJ. And I found out that that's, again, part of this hipster mentality. Like, I want to be cool. This, again, so right now we're talking about what to not use the ego for, right? And then we're going to talk about what to use the ego for, which you could say I actually am already talking about what to use the ego for. But, you know, it's kind of a thing in our society. Everybody wants to be important. Everybody wants to be cool. Yeah, that's the ego. And the ego isn't necessarily bad. But every time you ask somebody, they go, oh yeah, I'm INFJ. Oh, and I think you're INFJ too. Unless they think you're a narcissist, then you're one of the other ones. And again, I don't know enough about it. I've taken it. I don't remember which one I was, but it wasn't INFJ. Now, to spot a narcissist, there has to be a pattern of behavior. And I want you guys to be really careful when you start throwing that word around, because a lot of people make that mistake. They look at one single thing that somebody says, and they've never seen this person before in their life, and they go, oh yeah, that person's a narcissist. Yeah, no. Maybe if you've had somewhere between 3 and 6 interactions with the person. And again, that doesn't mean that they have full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. They could just be pathological. And again, narcissism is growing, guys. It's exploding. This pathological, more everyday form of narcissism. And people that are peer pressuring you into taking a psychedelic drug, yeah, that's about as cult as it gets. And you should have seen it, you guys. There were even, now I did delete myself a couple of people. There were 2 people that I deleted because what they were doing was they would type out like a 2-paragraph long response talking about why you should take ayahuasca and everybody should do it. And one of the people, there was 2 of these, one of the people even cited some doctor or I mean, you know, I don't know what this person's credentials were, but they were using this person as a resource, and I've never heard of this person. It's just some nobody on the internet. And you went, oh yeah, this one guy, he said blah, blah, blah. And there were 2 of these people in the comments. And seriously, it was like a 2-paragraph long, like, please take ayahuasca. No, really, it's good for you. Look. And they were just like feverishly, like crazed, drug-addled weirdos. Like zombies. And get this, it gets better. They copied and pasted this response, and they responded to every single person in that thread. They made sure to get their copy and pasted message in front of everybody on that thread. And those guys I deleted. And then everybody else that was in the thread, being a shameless internet troll, they were just harassing everybody in the thread, calling people names, attacking them. Everybody was a narcissist but them and me, of course, right? And again, I went honey badger on these motherfuckers just to see what would happen. Sure enough, they left. And one of the people that did that, I looked at their Facebook page and, you know, they had like, I don't know, maybe 4,000 followers or something. And they're all wearing like tie-dye dresses and, right. And again, guys, I do ayahuasca because I'm spiritual. That's what they're saying. And so when I pointed out, ayahuasca is not spiritual. It's just the ego's feeble attempt to acquire spiritual. Right away, they got so super triggered by that. And it was just, they just had to attack me and everybody else. Why? Because the ego, whenever you disagree with it, it's like you are being attacked. If you are identified energetically as the ego mind, it feels like your very existence is being threatened. And spiritualism is supposed to be only the embracing of consciousness. I mean, really, spiritualism should be where the word consciousness is in this picture. But unfortunately, this here is what it's become. It's become another religion. And there are even people peer pressuring you and using every single kind of narcissistic tactic in the book to doing shit like that. That's just fucking weird. That's just fucking weird, man. The mind includes chakras, thoughts, emotions, and the ego, the identity entity, the energy body. Think of it like cloud storage. The water in your body, by the way, is a conduit. They've done all these studies where they've tried to put information into water to see how much information it can hold. And it held so much information, so much more information than should have been physically possible. So they're pretty sure that when you do that, the information goes somewhere. Right. Breath work. Totally. Yep. No problem. And guys, the thing is, all of this stuff, breath work, ayahuasca, healing, right? Whatever it is, anything that you want to talk about, any technique, no problem. But why are you doing it? And breath work, that is one of my personal favorites. It really helps you get grounded to stay present, right? So everything that I just described is what to not do with the ego, and also is the definition of the word ego that we usually see, especially online. Just it's everybody's doing it, dude. Everybody's doing it. It's a big dick measuring contest. Everybody wants to prove how fucking badass they are. Oh, look at how spiritual I am. It's everywhere. I've had students in my True Spiritual Journey Facebook group, they go in there and they go, guys, I'm telling you, this community, there's nothing else like it on the internet. And I got to tell you guys, I'm very honored. I'm very honored when I get that kind of feedback. We do it right, guys. I want you to actually be spiritual. That's my goal. What about people who prefer to identify as spiritual because they don't want to identify with a particular religion? Right. If that's what they're doing, then they are actually religious. They just say that they're spiritual. Right? They've got a lot of dogmatic beliefs. And then they go, oh, well, I'm not religious. Right? That's what this is trying to tell you. Well, anyway, this person gets in the True Spiritual Journey Facebook group, and they go, guys, there's nothing else like this group out there. They joined Rupert Spira's Facebook community, or maybe it was a Rupert Spira Facebook community. I don't know if it was his official group or page. But even if it is, I totally get what's going on. You know, it's going to be like my New World All-Star Facebook group. And other than like the bare minimum, people can do anything they want in there. We don't really like monitor that group a lot, right? As long as people aren't fighting, as long as people aren't like super over the top obsessing over their twin flame, as long as you're not posting stuff from known cult leaders, as long as you're not like selling or promoting other spiritual coaches because it's my group. No, no. Guys, go buy a package from this other coach on my group. No, 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 no. So as long as you're not doing those kind of obvious things, we kind of just let people do whatever they want. And yeah, and somebody else earlier in the chat, they pointed this out. Yeah, there's a lot of these new age fruitcakes in there. And I like it whenever there's one of these controversies that unfolds, which, by the way, it's not really controversial. To say ayahuasca is not spiritual and that spiritual cannot be acquired is not controversial. It's also not debated. The only people who debate that are people that they're lost. Like they're never going to really be able to enjoy the full benefits of consciousness, of what spiritualism really is supposed to be. So anyway, one of my students, they go, yeah, dude, like I was in this Rupert Spira Facebook group and everybody in there, it's like a big dick measuring contest. It's all these spiritual hipsters and Trigglypuffs trying to show off like how badass and spiritual they are. Look at everything that I'm doing. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That proves that I'm spiritual. And then when you point out that they're doing that, they go, no, I'm not. You're a narcissist, right? And here's the thing about narcissism, guys. It's not what they say. It's what they do. Right. And I'm going to say this. These people, they can do whatever they want. And if you think I'm bad and you're going to triangulate me against Eckhart Tolle or Jesus, I'm going to point out that both of those teachers have talked about this very topic. Eckhart Tolle has made lots of videos about people who have a spiritual identity, which is an oxymoron. That's like saying I have a round square. And so I'm not out to get anybody. I'm not out to compare myself to others. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. But here's the thing, guys. Some of you are going to listen to me. And for those of you that have an ear to listen, I don't want you to get sucked into this, guys. I want you to be satisfied. I want you to live a happy life. Doesn't that sound nice? Doesn't that sound like a good idea? Yeah. And guys, if you want to derive the full benefit of your spiritual awakening, all you got to do is basically avoid these little traps. And all it does is suck you into thinking and thinking and thinking. And this kind of behavior is everywhere. And it's not your problem. It's not your job to change them. And it's not my job to change them. And I don't need to change them. I'm just going to go over here and do my thing. But like I've said many times on this YouTube channel, if a vampire is knocking at your door and you don't know what a vampire is, and you don't know the rules of vampires, he's going to get you. You don't have to let the vampire into your house, even if the door is wide open. He cannot cross that threshold unless you give him permission. And what's interesting about a vampire is vampires are known for being the mythology of vampires. Vampires are known for being very charming. And you want to like them, and they're always sweet talking you into letting them do the things they're doing so that they can get their way. They're very cunning. They're very, very cunning, just like ego can be, right? And interesting, narcissists, one of their very favorite tactics is charm. And they'll charm everybody around you. Family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, everybody. Charm, 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 charm. They're so charming. And everybody thinks, wow, that person is a great person. What's your problem? Your partner, your friend, your family member is such a nice, charming person. They're wonderful. Why are you so negative? Right. That's called the flying monkey phenomenon. Because what's really going on is all of these flying monkeys, all of these people around you, they don't get to see what happens behind closed doors. That's how the narcissist operates. And again, when one of these people, when they gaslight, triangulate, charm, when they do all this crap to try to trick you, and after a while they figure out, yeah, it's not going to work. As they leave, and this is called the narcissistic discard, right? When they're on their way out the door, they go, namaste. When they're on their way out the door, to have the appearance of spiritual. These people are spiritual in name only. And again, I'm not out to get anybody. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. But again, guys, if there's a vampire knocking on your door, don't you think you should know if it's a vampire? Because they look like nice people. Vampires. You know, Count Dracula with the cape. That's not really the legend of the vampire. It's going to be someone who's very charming. One soul. I just want to say good, good, good. Do that, do that, do that. Yeah, 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 do that. I need more helpers to help me set a whole bunch of people free from this crap. That's why the thumbnail for this live stream is the guy who's breaking free of the chains. There is a legitimate purpose behind the ego. And I got to tell you, we've kind of already been talking about it. Any tips on becoming a coach? Yeah, just get started. Don't expect perfection. If you would have seen, for example, my early YouTube videos, they were so bad I deleted them, but people liked them. They liked the message, but like the audio quality was really bad. So just do it. Just get started. People always, oh yeah, I can't get started until I get better at this thing. Just get started. Just do something. And again, don't try to change people, guys. When people are ready to hear this, they're going to come to this message of non-duality. We just need to be aware of these things. And if you are aware of this kind of trickery, so this is the bad side, the negative side, the destructive side of ego, then you're free of it. And something interesting happens when you have this adult conversation, when you're willing to sit down and talk about this stuff in an adult way and acknowledge what's going on. Kelly K, thank you so much. Something interesting happens when you're ready to have this adult conversation. You experience more satisfaction in life. No, you don't sit around. Like when I turn this camera off, guys, when I'm done with today's live, I'm done talking about this. But I do know about this stuff. This is the good application of ego now. This is the purpose of ego. And again, the purpose is whatever you want it to be. Like, what is the purpose of ego? Well, what serves you? There's no right or wrong, guys, when it comes to that. Now, I would submit to you that there's behavior that can be destructive, like allowing yourself to get used by narcissists or the New Age cult. And again, one of the ways they trick you is to give you an instruction on healing, which is destructive. There's going to be challenges in your life forever, guys. So what you really need to do is learn how to live in harmony with the feelings that you have. The ego loves to do this thing called avoidance of pain. Avoidance of pain. And the ego causes pain. And again, now when I'm using the word ego, I am using it in the objective sense of the word. It's the identity, the id, the ego, the personality. Not, oh, you're in your ego, which is probably gaslighting if somebody says that to you. Wow, you guys, One Soul, Annie, that's awesome. Good for you guys, man. That's great. Congratulations. That's awesome. Now, this is the useful, constructive, maybe not toxic way of using the ego. The purpose of the ego is to be able to identify things that don't serve you. And again, when you get really good at identifying this trickery and identifying other things that don't serve you, you eliminate them as much as you can in a useful, meaningful way, like cutting toxic people out of your life. Not accidentally getting yourself into situations that are bad for you and cause suffering. You stop denying yourself the abundance that's your birthright. You're like, wait a minute, money is fine. I'm going to go get some. You let go of all the shame and guilt around money, which narcissists they're going to tell you that, oh, you just want to make some money. And then when you go, dude, making money is not bad. They're going to go, oh, I know that, right? So gaslighting. So they're going to flip the script when it's convenient for them, right? So what is the purpose of ego? To say no thank you to that stuff. When the vampire comes to your house, you're going to go, oh, hey, nice to see you. I'm good though, thank you. And then you close the door and that's it. You don't need to engage with them. You don't need to talk with them. You can do that. And I've said this many, many times on my YouTube channel. I've made videos specifically about this. If you're in a rare mood, or if you see the possibility of lies being spread about you to the point where you could be, let's say, financially damaged. You see somebody committing slander, for example, and you're like, wait, I think I need to stand up for myself on this one. Then do it. This is the purpose of ego, guys. I've seen people on the internet saying incorrect things about me, right? False things. And that happens all the time. And there's really no stopping that. But, I said something. When you become a public figure, you're going to have to deal with this. I've even seen people go after Eckhart Tolle, some born-again Christian or something. And he was like, oh yeah, Eckhart Tolle is just another one of these new age fruitcakes. Yeah, if anything, Eckhart Tolle is the old age spiritualism, right? Which is to say eternal truth, which is objective. It's the truth. Here's an analogy that I've used before. What if at work, Susie, who sits next to you, she accuses you of stealing her pen. And you didn't do it, but you don't want to argue, so you just don't even say anything. You look at her and you're like, whatever. Because she's always got to be starting something, right? And you're just like, psh. A week later, Ted, down the hall, he accuses you of stealing a stapler. Why? Because a rumor started to circulate throughout the rumor mill. The rumor mill at the workplace. And it's there. Everybody's going, so-and-so stole Susie's pen. And when Ted's stapler comes up missing, he goes, I bet it was you. Why? Because you didn't stand up for yourself. So if you would have told Susie, dude, you're always doing this. I didn't steal your stupid pen. I got a whole freaking cup of pens. I don't need your damn pen. I don't even like your pen. Fuck off. Well, then who did it? I don't know, but leave me alone. Right? Now, what are the odds that Ted, a week later, is going to accuse you of stealing a stapler? Probably a lot less. So sometimes you got to do that, guys. What's the purpose of ego? And again, one of these New Age fruitcake cult member spiritual hipsters, which are like, these people are like expert level narcissists. One of the first things they're always going to do is they're going to go, oh, you're in your ego. Yeah. I think it's important to honor these sacred traditions. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do that. I can even disagree with these sacred traditions. Just because people have done ayahuasca for a long time does not make it good. And it definitely doesn't make it spiritual. Oh, they've done it for a long time, so that proves that it's spiritual and that we have to honor that. No, I don't. Maybe one of you guys watching, maybe you think ayahuasca is destructive. And again, you can do ayahuasca all day long. I don't care. Again, I've done acid and shrooms and shit. Like a long time ago, but I did it and no regrets. It was kind of fun. But if I don't do those things, that doesn't prove that I'm spiritual or not. So what is the purpose of ego? It's to protect you. It's to help you navigate this world. And everybody's got free will and everybody can say things. And humans are really good at lying and misleading you and tricking you. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. The older you get, the wiser you become, maybe. I know a lot of people that are older than I am, much older, and oh, they're your elders, you've got to respect them. No, I don't. Because if I look at a pattern of behavior that this elder is displaying, and they're always gaslighting, they're always shitbagging you, they're always making some shit up, they've always got some drama going on, they're always judging you, they're like totally entitled. That's another thing that a narcissist is always doing. They're so entitled. They're like the most entitled person you've ever seen in your life. There are elderly people that are just like really set in their ways. So, is that wisdom? Does wisdom automatically come with age? Obviously not. And the purpose of ego is for you to be able to sit down and look at that and go, wait a minute, yeah, I see what's going on. Guys, I've seen people talk about how a victim mentality can be a form of toxicity. And I don't know if I quite would call it toxicity, but I don't know. In some cases, yeah, it is toxic. Like the Triggly Puffs, right? Or the attack mobs on Twitter. This victim mentality. And you know who else has talked about this? Eckhart Tolle, Rupert, Yogananda. They all talk about this. At some point, the ego loves to think that it's special. It loves that. And if you learn how to avoid this, then you won't get sucked into it. That's the purpose of ego. And again, the purpose is whatever you say it is. It's what serves you. Is this serve me or not? So notice this is duality. Does it serve me or not? Duality. That's the mind. The mind is duality. It serves a purpose. We came down here for a reason. Right. Exactly. Annie. You're right. And the thing is okay, well, if you are the enlightened one, then I'll be able to see by your actions. Right? Usually people who are enlightened, they don't declare that. But people come to them and ask them, how did you become so enlightened? And they go, okay, I'll tell you, right? And they tell you. They give you a teaching. But only under that circumstance, only if you come to them and ask. They're not just going to go around and go, I'm enlightened, right? But they know they're enlightened. They're just living their life. That's all. So, what serves you? What serves you? Guys, don't let people push you around. And that doesn't mean that you become jaded and you're like, I'm going to fight them. And now you become toxic. And again, there are times when maybe that is necessary. But again, what we're talking about is a pattern of behavior, which again, a legitimate psychologist, they're going to tell you that. Like, you can't just look at one thing somebody does and declare, oh, this person is toxic. You need to establish a pattern of behavior. Because if somebody is being attacked and they feel that they need to stick up for themselves, then maybe they're justified. But do they do that every time incessantly? And then they get sucked into this victim mentality. So I just kind of walk away 999 times out of 1,000. Sometimes I'm like, no, not today, dude. You know, I can see how this can turn into a situation. So Here's another purpose of the ego, which is a memory storage system. Learning information, knowledge. And again, people often have the misconception that wisdom comes from age, because the older you are, the more knowledge you have. Yeah, or that can be true, unless you're one of these people that are willfully ignorant, but they conflate knowledge and wisdom is what they're doing. And it's an easy mistake to make. But guys, the mind, the ego is a storage system. It's literally an energy cloud. And again, we can use the word ego or mind interchangeably, but right now I'm being specific. The id, the ego, the identity, it's an entity, it's an energy cloud storage system. And people who are in a state of what they call unconsciousness, they live through that. They are identified as that. They derive their sense of self from that. And that's usually when it turns toxic. But I want you to be free from that. I want you to learn this stuff. Knowledge is power. Knowledge comes from the mind. Wisdom comes from the soul, from the self. Knowledge and wisdom form a winning combination. You can be free today. And I'm telling you guys that every single day. There's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Not a single one of you. Even the toxic people. It's just people who live unconsciously are in a state of forgetfulness. Awakening is a remembrance. You remember who you really are. I am not the mind. And let's talk about, so we've talked about things that I recommend avoiding when it comes to how you use your ego, what you're using it for. And we've talked about what to use it for, which is to protect you from stuff and to learn things so that you can live a satisfying life. And again, when you get out of these toxic behaviors, or when you get rid of this stuff, if you have this conversation, it's not so that we can harp on this stuff. It's so that we can learn what mistakes to avoid. And when you learn what mistakes to avoid, you're happier. You experience greater satisfaction in your life because you cut out all this gobbledygook, all the toxic behavior. Now, let's talk about what spiritual really is. And I'll go ahead and use my example from the other day. Oh, here's a good one. Hey, there's 111 likes on this post. How about that? It's a Rupert Spira quote on my Facebook page, my Kurt Johnson page. Enlightenment is not an exotic experience. Rupert Spira. Here's another good one. Oh, this one got 222 likes and 16 shares. I guess this really resonated. Being nice does not make you spiritual. Sometimes telling people they're wrong and telling them where they can stick it is the most spiritual thing you can do. Amen. Okay, here's the post that pissed all the fruitcakes off. All the New Age cultists, which again, using peer pressure tactics and gaslighting, to try to make themselves feel better about who they are, to overcome their own shame, which is an ego tactic. It's very narcissistic, and that's not what to do with ego, right? But what to do with ego is to see that stuff, which is kind of an interesting duality, isn't it? There's the toxic behavior, and then there's, yeah, I see toxic behavior, and I'm not going to get sucked into it anymore. Right, that's a duality. That should be telling you something. Remember, the mind is duality, yin yang, right? The mind. So there's two sides to that. The mind is duality. There's two sides to that, right? I see the toxic behavior, and then there's the toxic behavior. There's people that are toxic, and there's people that are not. What is the purpose of ego? Well, again, what serves you? What serves you? What serves you? And it's a little bit subjective, but in some situations, using the tool of your wisdom, which is spiritual, at different times you realize, wait, it's not subjective this time. This is objective in other situations. And the ego, it loves to make things black and white. If it's not this, then it's that. And that's one of the favorite tricks of the narcissist and of the New Age cults, the New Age cult members and their narcissism. They're going to make everything black and white. If it's not this, then it's that, right? And there's no wisdom there. There's no intelligence to realize when it could be subjective or objective, a situation. Okay, so my statement was, ayahuasca is not spiritual. It is nothing more than the ego's feeble attempt to acquire the spiritual. I didn't say doing ayahuasca is bad, and I didn't say it's good. I need to acquire spiritual, and I gotta have experiences to do it. No. And there's even people that are like so super sneaky. They're so super sneaky that they're going to say, well, it helped to show me who I really am, and then I moved into a spiritual way of life. Okay, fair enough, but that doesn't change anything that I've said. Ayahuasca is not inherently spiritual because spiritual cannot be acquired. Nothing outside of you can give you that, you guys. Nothing. Nothing outside of you can give you spiritual. You already are that. Now, if you take ayahuasca and it somehow assists you in having a deeper realization, okay, fine. But that doesn't change anything. I'm going to explain to you exactly what spiritual is in a very precise way in just a moment. I need to print this diagram. I've got a really cool way to illustrate. Exactly what this is all about. Give me just a moment. Wait. Come on, baby. There we go. Print that off. Okay. So first, imagine, if you will, empty space. Just a void out there somewhere in the cosmos. A void, empty space, right? Okay. So So empty space is a place. Empty space is a place. We're going to call that not be. This diagram is illustrating a thing called dichotomy, which, by the way, spiritual teachers and physicists deal with dichotomy day in, day out. And it's interesting. Science is just catching up with spiritualism today. Isn't that interesting? And no, it is not true that scientists would disagree with that statement. What is true is half of the scientists out there would disagree with that statement. The other half would go, yeah, I think there's something to that. And we've got a lot of really good reasons to think that way. But I digress. So not be in this diagram represents empty space, nothing, a place, right? Okay. Be represents thing, object, like a space rock, which you could place in the empty space. And remember, the empty space is a place. And both empty space and the space rock, the thing, the object, it's easy for your mind to visualize and to accept the reality of those things. Notice that's a duality. Empty space, thing, nothing, right? Duality. Now, riddle me this. And I'm going to invite you to, in the chat, see if you can answer this question. What do you have when you have neither thing nor nothing? Time's up. Anybody know? Right. Exactly. Mandy Marlins. I love your answer. It's incorrect, but at the same time, it could be correct because you also included the little emoji that's going, right? Yeah, emptiness, right. Well, space or emptiness is not be. Remember, not be is a place. It's space. It's empty. It's nothing. It's a void. It's a vacuum. Like outer space, right? That's not be. So, without picking those things, what do you have when you have neither emptiness or place or space or objects, things, right? Well, I'll tell you what you have. You've got A. And here's the thing. The mind is incapable of grasping what I'm talking about. Not be is emptiness, right? And because the mind cannot give any other answer, because the mind is duality, it's incapable of grasping non-duality, the mind, because the mind is duality. And it's not defective because it does that. That's what it's for. And I just spent the last 2 hours talking about that with you. Yeah, the mind is for that. It is duality. It can be useful if you know what you're doing with it. Okay. when I ask, what do you have when you have neither of those? That always happens. Like people, they're like, oh, fuck, I don't know. I guess nothing? Wait, I can't pick that. Shit, what do I do? What do I say? Right? Right, because the mind, it doesn't know what else to do. It tries to say that what not B is A. Because here's the thing. If it's not B, then I guess it could be A. Because A isn't B, is it? Right. A is not B. It's A. A isn't B. But this here, what I'm calling not B, it's not A either. Now, when it comes to the yin-yang, I suppose you could call not B yang or good. B would be bad. Because here's the thing. And by the way, Justin, you got it right. Justin, you have the correct answer. One Soul, thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Farewell, my friend. See you next week, or in 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. Yeah. So, and now you understand why whenever spiritual teachers talk about consciousness, they call it a non-duality teaching. There's even a word for what spiritualism really is, right? Yeah, spirit, consciousness, right? Okay. So, A, which is consciousness or spirit, your soul perhaps, right? Would it be accurate to say that it's bad? No, for sure it's not bad. Consciousness, because anybody that's ever experienced Satori or perhaps have done psychedelics, and you can have a bad trip. Ayahuasca, shrooms, whatever, right? But usually we don't, and you have this big quote-unquote spiritual experience where you realize, wait, I am bigger than my mind and my body, and that's cool, but the problem is it goes away. It's ephemeral. And then people, they want to keep doing stuff like that in an attempt to start being spiritual, when in fact you always were in the first place. You can't acquire this. Well, anyway, I felt good for a time whenever you experience Satori, for example, which you don't need any kind of stimulants to do. And Satori is where the ego mind just kind of yields for a while. And to describe it it's really tough. You know, is it bliss? Yeah, but no. Is it Zen? Yeah, it's maybe a better word. Is it Nirvana? Yeah. Oh, okay, so it's good then. Well, I wouldn't say that it's bad. I wouldn't say that it's B. It's not bad, but it's not really good either. It's neither of those. It's not duality. And if you've ever experienced something like that, and you experience true non-duality, you realize, yeah, it's something else. It's something other than the duality of mind. It's like a different mode or something. It's not a different mood. It's a different mode. Okay, if you ask a physicist, where did the Big Bang happen? Where did it take place? They're going to go, well, here's the thing. There's not really a way to answer that question. And you're like, well, what do you mean? You don't know? Well, it's not that we don't know, it's that before the Big Bang, there was no such thing as place. There was no up, there was no down, there was no side to side. There was no empty space, there was no place. And again, the mind really struggles with that because when it thinks about, okay, what was there before the universe, it's going to think of like emptiness. And that's the whole thing, is it's not emptiness either. It's not B. It's neither of these. It's a singularity. It's like space curving in on itself infinitely. And by the way, whenever one of these like super badass yogi masters in the Far East, they'll go into a meditation for like a month, right? Or a week even. And you know, medical fact, if you don't sleep for, I think it's like 72 hours is like the maximum. If you make yourself not sleep for like 72 hours, I don't even think it's that long, you'll die. Like straight die. If you don't sleep for that long. And in addition to not sleeping, these guys don't go to the bathroom, they don't eat, nothing. They just sit there and they meditate like that. You ever heard about those guys? They can do that? How do they do it? Well, they're going directly to the source. They're like way outside of the ego. And again, what I mean is the mechanical, objective version of the word ego. The id, the personality, the separate self, as it's been called. Now, when they come out of it, what do they report to everybody? They report that it felt like I was going inward and inward and inward and inward and inward and inward and inward. And I just kept doing that. And again, or they're going to go, I aligned with source, right? Science, when it describes a singularity, you mean like not duality? Right. Same thing. When they describe a singularity, and this is what they've shown, they've demonstrated this mathematically. It really works this way, if you could have such a thing. It's space curving in on itself infinitely. Just like the guy meditating for a month, he's going inward infinitely. Very interesting how those two things are describing the same phenomenon. And again, in the discipline of science, the opposite of that is this universe where everything is relative. Albert Einstein called it relativity. And in spiritualism, they call it duality. Or, again, the self is non-duality. So, now that you understand the best possible explanation anybody could give you about this, about consciousness, which is complete non-duality, riddle me this. How do you acquire or achieve that? And don't give me some bullshit answer. I'm here, I got to get there. I have to achieve enlightenment. I have to acquire it. I'm not enlightened now. I need to get enlightened. Duality. I need to get there. Yeah, you can't travel there because there's no place in non-duality. And this is what the great spiritual masters have been saying for millennia. So when you get all the toxic new age spiritual hipsters who are going to try to peer pressure you into doing all of this bogus healing that causes more problems in your life and peer pressure you into doing drugs, that's what they think they're doing. You already are consciousness. And also, every great spiritual master who is enlightened, what are they going to tell you? They're going to say, when I became enlightened, how I got here was when I realized, or let me start over. Now that I'm enlightened, I look back and I realize that the thing which was stopping me from enlightenment was trying to become enlightened, seeking enlightenment. That's what was stopping me from being enlightened, was trying to get here. Why? Because it's non-duality. You can't get from here to there, be to not be. That's what the mind is for. And again, the mind has a purpose, the ego. And I would submit to you, there's a useful way and there's a toxic way to use the ego. But here's the thing. When you remember who you really are, which is the non-duality consciousness, the being, something very interesting happens. You begin to wield the ego for its intended purpose, for a purpose that really serves you. You can start to use the ego in a constructive way that serves you. You can use it to protect yourself. You can use it to acquire things, have a nice way of life, maybe have a nice home, maybe make some money. Help other people if you like. And they call this living holistically, H-O-L. Dr. Ada, PhD. Oh, wow. Well, thank you. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you. Very honored. Coming from, somebody with a doctorate. Getting a doctorate is hard. That takes a lot of work, and they don't just give those out to anybody. So, thank you. So that's the core of of spiritualism, like actual spiritualism, not the toxic spiritualism online. And here's another thing that I keep forgetting to mention. There's really kind of two types of people. When it comes to not using the ego in a healthy way. The first type are the ones we've been talking about, which is, the narcissists, the pathological, which again there is like an epidemic of narcissism. It's exploding right now. And these spiritual hipsters are not well-meaning. They operate from shame, and they're everywhere. Now, there's another type, and these people, I really hope that we can get through to them. I really hope we can reach them. Narcissism, you can't fix it. All you can do is be aware of it and just say no thank you to the vampire when he comes to your house. But there's another kind of person. And that's a well-meaning but misguided person. Here's an analogy that I often use. I once had a handyman come to my house to do a few odd jobs around the house. And he shows up in a nice pickup truck. He's got nice clothes, and I don't mean dress clothes. They were work clothes, but they weren't like all greasy and torn up and shit. He had all of the tools, everything was well kept, and he was a very nice man. And when he started working, I saw how he was going about doing his work, And you could tell that he legit wanted to do a good job. He was a good guy. Here's the problem. I don't think he knew what he was doing. When I saw what he was doing, I was like, oh shit. And after about a day and a half of this, he like put the towel bar on crooked. He drilled a bunch of extra holes. He accidentally broke some stuff. And, I very politely, I said, all right, well, here's your money. I'm all set. And he goes, oh, I thought what about these other tasks that you had for me to do? I go, you know what? I'm out of money. I guess I kind of underestimated how much this would cost. How about I just give you a call in a few weeks, and we'll wrap that up. And he goes, okay. And then I sent him on his way, and I never talked to him again. Right? And then I had to hire another person to come and fix all of that stuff and do the rest of this stuff. Well, guys, that's what you're going to get with some of these people on the internet, the pop culture spiritual message that are telling you to do all this healing, which actually it's not going to work. Why? Because there is a way, there is the truth about how the mind functions, and you don't get to decide how the mind functions. It's not up to you. It works the way it works. And if one of these my truthers come at you with, well, maybe that's true for you, but my truth is that it works like this. No. So gravity works every time except for you. There is a way that the mind functions. And the way these healers talk about it is they go, I've got something that's coming up to be healed. Right. Their whole methodology, their whole modality is to treat the mind like it's a container, and I have to purge all the bad stuff out. Or like a wet towel, and we're going to wring it out. So we get all the bad stuff out. And then that way, only good things are left. And guys, that's not how the mind functions. Until the day you die, you'll be able to create new emotions. And life is always going to bring you challenges. Now, when you learn how to regulate emotions and how to cut toxic people out of your life and keep yourself out of certain situations, that's when your happiness, your satisfaction in life goes through the roof. And when you explain this stuff to some of these people, to the narcissists, to the wolf in sheep's clothing, to the other side of this, right? Not to the helpful handyman, but to the people that are legit pathological. When you explain that to them, they're going to go, oh, I know. Right. But I'm not listening to the things you say, dude. I'm looking at what you do. And this is how you treat this. If you want real healing, guys, go get real healing. And then you can be healed. Like talking to an experienced clinical psychologist. And picking a psychologist is a lot like picking out a doctor or a dentist or a mechanic. You might have to go to a few of them first. You might have to spend some money on it. You go see one a couple of times and you're like, this doesn't seem to be right. And then you go to another one and that's the one. And I've got a really great psychologist. I haven't talked to him for a long time, but he was very helpful. And I don't agree with every single thing he says when it comes to certain topics. He happens to think men and women are the same, right? He's one of those, right? He thinks it's all just conditioning. He doesn't recognize that there's biology at play that causes men and women to act a certain way in certain situations. Like men and women are motivated by different things biologically when it comes to relationships. However, it was kind of a moot point to like maybe argue the point with him, because what he does have to say about relationships is very fair, and it was accurate. Like almost everything he said, it was very good, right? So it was like, well, whatever. That's just a detail, I guess. So there's those guys too, the helpful handymen, the innocent bystanders. So there you go, guys. We're at 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think if you've watched this entire live stream, I hope that you've learned something very valuable today. And guys, you don't have to agree with anything that I'm saying. You can go out into the world and try some of this stuff out for yourself and see what you think. And I got to tell you, I think you're going to find the same things, guys. And I'm not saying that because I want to be right. What I'm telling you is there is a way. There are a lot of things in life, in fact, probably more than not, that are objective. Like again, like which direction does the sun rise? Well, it rises in the east. Yeah, you don't get a pick. Well, there you go. Doctor, is it Ada or Ada? There you go. You're a therapist. You know exactly what I'm talking about. There is a way. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, but I know that there is a technology behind that. There is a science. There is a way. And again, it's not about being right. It's about like living a good life. I want to know how this shit does work so that I can live peacefully. And if I live in harmony with it, then instead of against it, what do you think's going to happen? I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be fulfilled. And again, this treating the mind like it's a container and we got to purge all the bad stuff out, and so that we can experience good feelings only, and just go la 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 every time there's a bad feeling. Right. The ego, it creates suffering, and then it's all about the avoidance of suffering. The ego, it loves that. And I think the avoidance of suffering, myself personally, I don't know if that's inherent in the personality or if it's just something that we learn. But either way, I know that's not really how it works. I'm not saying I love to have a bad day or anything like that. It's just, guys, shit happens. And you're just going to have an adult conversation about this stuff and learn to deal with it. You accept the reality that we live in. You know, the Buddha said life is suffering. Remember that? Now you know exactly what he meant by that, don't you? If you watched this whole live stream. He wasn't saying life sucks and it's always terrible. No, he was saying, yeah, life is always going to bring you these challenges. There's no getting out of it. Stop trying to avoid it. I'm not saying embrace it. I'm not saying wallow in it. What I'm saying is, yeah, that's the way it goes. And if you stop trying to avoid it, something interesting happens. You end up experiencing a lot more satisfaction in life. And that's the truth. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Great live stream today. Like I said, I will be back in 4 weeks' time. I'm going to start posting law of attraction videos, regular like YouTube uploads. So 3 weeks on Wednesday. And then as per usual, every Thursday. But in addition to that, we're going to go 3 Wednesdays with that also. And then every 4th Wednesday, we're going to do one of these live streams. So I'll be back on the 21st every single month. That way you don't have to miss me too much, because I'll miss you guys too. I sure do enjoy doing this. It sure is a lot of fun. Thank you very much, you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you next time. Adios.